and welcome back to another Freaky Friday video on my channel. Today's video is going to be another video in the hotel series on this channel, but this video is going to be a tad bit different than my last hotel video, just because my last video was based more on things that have taken place within the hotel, whereas this video is based more on the haunting that is said to take place in the hotel. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a different video on my channel because I don't think that I have ever covered anything that had to do with ghosts before. I mean, I've covered some cases that have some paranormal aspects, but I've never actually talked about ghosts. So this is going to be a little bit of a different video than any I have ever done before. So I hope that you guys still enjoy it, and let's get right into today's video. Today we are going to be talking about the Stanley Hotel, which is located in Estes Park, Colorado. Now, this hotel is said to be one of the most haunted places in America and is actually what the famous book and movie called The Shining, written by Stephen King, was actually inspired by. Just like in the movie The Shining, the Stanley Hotel is actually located very high up in the mountains. So it is only open for 1 season per year, meaning that it is, 3 seasons per year. It is open for spring, summer, and then a little bit of fall. But as soon as it starts to get cold out, they do start to close the hotel down because the roads leading up to the hotel are not maintained enough for it to be safe for travelers to travel up towards the hotel. It's just, there's too much snow, it's too cold, it's just not safe. So the hotel is closed down for the winter. Now, I'm not quite sure if it is still closed down in the winter with today's technology, but when it was first built up until recently, it was closed for the entire winter. In 1973, the hotel was actually closing down for the season. All of the staff that were there were just prepping for the close down and getting everything ready so that it would be closed down for the winter and they wouldn't be coming back until spring, when all of a sudden Stephen King and his wife Tabitha entered the hotel and requested a room. The hotel did comply and they provided Stephen King and his wife a room for that night. But the very creepy and eerie thing to me is that this hotel was completely empty besides the staff who were working there, as well as Stephen King and his wife. Now again, this hotel is said to be one of the most haunted places in America, and they were the only guests in the entire hotel. Can you imagine going to a hotel, even if it's not haunted, and being the only guests? That in itself is so creepy, so I can't even imagine what must be going through Stephen King and his wife's head when they entered the hotel and they were literally the only guests staying there at the time. Stephen King and his wife walked around the hotel, they looked around, they stayed for the night, and while they were asleep, Stephen King had an extremely awful nightmare. And he woke up, and that is when he began writing The Shining, because the dream that he had was what inspired him to write the book. And now that is one of the most famous horror movies and horror novels in the entire world. And it was written about and inside of the Stanley Hotel. The room that the hotel had provided Stephen King with was actually room 217, which is said to be the most haunted room within the Stanley Hotel. This room, 217, is believed to be haunted by a woman by the name of Elizabeth Wilson, and many people who enter the room come out talking about Miss Wilson. Now, she worked at the hotel in 1911, and I think that she must have worked there for many years because she was the hotel's head housekeeper. So she was the head maid. She was in charge of all of the other maids who worked within this hotel. And in 1911, she went into this room during a storm, and there was a light on the wall, and she was trying to fix it, and there was a gas leak, and the light actually exploded. Now, Miss Wilson did survive this explosion, but she suffered from many injuries that she later did recover from. But strangely enough, just a few years later, Miss Wilson, or Elizabeth Wilson, actually passed away in this room due to a heart attack. Many of the guests who stay in this room report that when they leave the room to do anything, they often come back to seeing that all of their luggage has actually been unpacked and put away. Many of the items in the room are actually moved around when there is no explanation, when nobody in fact in the room did move things around. And one of the, I want to say funniest but also creepiest thing about Miss Wilson, or Elizabeth Wilson, who lives in this room at the hotel, is she is not a fan of unmarried couples staying together. So if you go there with your boyfriend or your girlfriend and you are not married but you're sleeping in the same bed, you often experience some pushing between the two of you. Some things are said. Sometimes people hear her saying things. Just, she is really unfond of this, and guests who go there who are not married but are staying together often come out with the most traumatizing stories because she is said to torment those people specifically. Jim Carrey was actually supposed to stay within the Stanley Hotel while he was filming Dumb and Dumber, but he only lasted there for about 3 hours because he said that it was so haunted and creepy that he was just having such bad vibes and bad experience within the hotel that he would not stay there. So he literally only lasted within the hotel walls for 3 hours. One of the areas within the hotel that I do want to mention, although I couldn't find any stories about it, is the Vortex, which is actually a staircase within the hotel. Now this staircase is said to be one of the most haunted places in the hotel, where people often experience, I guess, ghostly activity, but I couldn't find any stories on any of the experiences that people actually experienced while on this staircase. But again, it is said to be one of the most haunted areas in this hotel. Now, if you guys have stayed at this hotel and you experienced any hauntings on the staircase, please let me know in the comments down below and I'll pin your comment so people can see that. The next area in the hotel that I'm going to talk about is actually the concert hall. Now, most of the rooms within this hotel have one distinctive ghost, but the concert hall is said to have two. One being a man by the name of Paul. Now, Paul used to work at the hotel many years ago, and he didn't have one specific duty, but he did a lot of the duties for the hotel. So he just took care of a lot of the things that were going on. And one of his main duties at the time when he was working at the hotel was to strictly enforce an 11 p.m. curfew for the guests staying there. Now, many of the people who stay at the hotel now, including hotel staff who are working in the concert hall late at night, often hear somebody yelling at them to get out, and that is assumed to be the ghost of Paul. This is also often where many people say that they have came into an encounter with the hotel's owner, who is now deceased, by the name of Flora Stanley. And they often hear Flora playing the piano in this concert hall late at night. So when nobody's in there, you can often hear the piano being played, assumably by Flora Stanley. But the most famous ghost who favorites the concert hall at this hotel is a girl by the name of Lucy. Now, after historians and whatnot dug through the paperwork and everything like that of the Stanley Hotel, they cannot figure out who Lucy is. So it is widely speculated that she might have been a homeless girl or a runaway who at some point in her life took shelter in the Stanley Hotel in the concert hall. The fourth floor of the Stanley Hotel is actually said to be one of the most haunted floors in the entire hotel, if not the hauntedest. Now, back in the day when this hotel was very old and all of the workers lived on the property, this floor was actually where nannies and the maids and all of that with their children would live. So this is what they often hear walking around on this floor. Now, one of the most haunted rooms on this floor is room 401, and many people who stay in this room often report hearing children laughing and playing. You can sometimes hear people walking around in the room when in fact nobody is in there. And there is a closet door that just opens and closes on its own. It is just said to be a very eerie room to stay in because a lot of activity takes place as if a child is playing with you or trying to play a trick on you. But there is actually a much eerier side to room 401. And this part is said that a man by the name of Lord Dunraven often is seen and experienced while staying in this hotel room. Now, this man actually never visited the hotel within his lifetime, but before the hotel was built, he actually owned the property within the hotel's span where the hotel is now standing. He owned that property. This ghost particularly likes women, and many of the women who stay in this room often experience being touched when nobody else is in the room, having their hair played with, being grabbed, feeling their back being rubbed, all of these really creepy things when nobody else is in the room or within touching distance of them. And many of the men who stay in this room often feel as if they are being pushed out, as if they aren't wanted there. Some of them have even experienced being roughed around, and many of their personal belongings while men are staying in this room often go missing or are tampered with and broken so they can't be used again. Room 428 is also a very famous room in this hotel. I mean, all of the rooms in this hotel are pretty famous for being haunted, but room 428 is another one that is quite popular because many people who stay in this room experience hearing furniture being moved around, hearing again footsteps in the room when nobody else is in there, and many people have actually woken up in the middle of the night to see a man dressed as a cowboy standing at the foot of their bed. Now, I don't know about you, but if I ever woke up to see an unknown man standing at the end of my bed while I'm staying in a hotel, I would leave. I would be so scared and I would not even probably pack up, I would just leave. The main staircase in the Stanley Hotel is absolutely beautiful, and it is said to be one of the most beautiful spots in the entire hotel, but even there people have experienced some ghostly activity. Many people experience people brushing past them when they are in fact the only person on the stairs, and some guests have even taken pictures of the beautiful staircase to see a person standing on the stairs or at the top of the stairs or somewhere on the staircase when that person in real life actually wasn't even there. Just like many buildings that were built way back when, there is actually an underground caving system which runs underneath the Stanley Hotel. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with this, it is actually an underground caving system that helps the workers and stuff get from one place to another without disrupting the guests or without anybody seeing them. So you go literally under the ground and come up wherever you are headed. Now, to me, this definitely would be one of the creepiest places in the hotel because I'm not sure if you guys have been in an underground caving system, but I actually have, and they are very, very dark, they're really cold, and they're just so creepy. Even without them being in one of the most haunted places in the country, they are just so creepy to be in. Not only that, but the underground caving system for the Stanley Hotel is actually covered in limestone and quartz, which many ghost hunting professionals have actually said helps ghostly activity. So it, I guess, promotes them, helps them be more present. It is just said to really help out the ghost activity that goes on down there. So that is not somewhere that I would want to go, but if you do buy a ghost walk tour or whatever it is called through the Stanley Hotel, they actually do take you into the underground caving system. One of the stories that I found online about the Stanley Hotel was actually written by a man who is now an adult but frequently visited the hotel as a child with his family for lunch. Now, he said that while the adults stayed in the dining room and they socialized with one another, him and his siblings and all of the other children would kind of just run around the hotel. They would check out the rooms that were unlocked where nobody was staying. They would look all around the hotel. The hotel's huge and it has a lot of property, so I can see how that would be quite fun for a child. But he said that one day in particular when he was playing with his siblings, they were actually running down one of the hallways when they seen a hole in the wall. Now, these kids were very familiar with the hotel. They came there quite often for lunches and dinners with their families. So they said that this hole in the wall was just something they'd never seen before, and it just appeared like it had come from nowhere. And when they looked through the hole in the wall, there was actually a staircase within it. Now, this really creeped all of the kids out because they had heard all of the ghost stories and whatnot about the hotel, so they went back to tell the adults. But when they brought the adults back to the spot where the hole had completely been, it was gone, it wasn't there at all, and there was no signs of a staircase or anything else. Now, this story I thought was particularly interesting because of the Lord Dunraven room that I just told you about. So a young man and his girlfriend at the time were actually staying at the Stanley Hotel, and this is when they decided to take the ghost tour. So the ghost tour is like a ghost walk or whatever. You pay them, they walk you around the hotel, and they tell you about all the ghosts who haunt the hotel. Now, him and his girlfriend actually were walking around the hotel before the ghost tour, and they were visiting the 4th floor, just kind of looking around. And he said at one point he looked at his girlfriend and she looked just absolutely petrified. And he had said to her, you know, what's wrong? And she said that somebody was rubbing her back, but nobody was there, and her boyfriend was too far ahead of her to be touching her like that. So that just really freaked her out. Later on that day, the couple had actually gone on the ghost tour, and that is when they were told by the ghost tour instructor or leader that the 4th floor was actually haunted by a man by the name of Lord Dunraven, who took a very large interest in young, pretty women. But guys, that is really all the information that I have on this hotel for you today. I know that this was a little bit different than my last hotel video, but I did want to talk about the Stanley Hotel just because we have all pretty much, or I'm pretty sure most of us have seen The Shining, and if we haven't, we've at least heard of it. And I do think that it is pretty interesting that The Shining was actually based on this hotel, which is why I decided to talk a little bit about this hotel. But with that all being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Please give it a big thumbs up if you did. Don't forget to comment down below what you'd like to see in my future videos, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss any future videos from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys!